The homework assignment for this week focuses on generic methods, but in the video I wanted to make sure that the concept of generic classes rather than generic methods is clear. So what we have here is the generic stack class that's defined on page 773 of your textbook. We know that this class is generic because it has this placeholder here that's the placeholder for the type of object that our generic stack is going to hold. So here I've called it T, your book calls it E. In fact, you can call it anything you want. I could call it X if I wanted to, and as long as I call it the same thing everywhere, it's fine. So this is kind of like a variable, but it's not a normal variable in the sense that it's a variable that holds the type or the data type that this class is going to hold. So yeah, I can use whatever I want. So here I've changed it all to X. A stack is a data structure that is called LIFO, which stands for last in, first out. So what happens is the last item that I add to a stack is the first item that I remove from the stack. So you can think of like a stack of trays in a cafeteria. The last item that gets put on the stack is the first one that someone's going to remove when they come next in line. I think another good example is when you're playing a card game and you have the discard pile. The discard pile is a stack in the sense that if the game allows you to pick up a card off the discard pile, you can only pick up the card on top of the stack, the one that was most recently discarded. So stacks have a few methods that are well established for the data type, and they are getSize, which just returns the number of items in the stack, peek, which allows you to look at the item on the top of the stack but not actually remove it. Pop allows you to actually remove the item on top of the stack. And then push adds a new item to the stack. And then isEmpty is pretty self-explanatory, and toString is just printing out all the items in the stack. So with the card game example, push would be someone putting a card down on the discard pile. Peek would be someone looking to see what card is currently on top of the discard pile but not picking it up. And pop would be someone actually taking the top card off the discard pile. So over here I've just shown a quick example of using this generic class. So here I've made a generic stack full of string objects. So whenever I'm using a generic class, when I declare it and make use of it, I have to tell it what type of data structure, or what type of data I'm going to actually put into it. So here I've passed it string in the angle brackets. So everywhere you see X here in angle brackets, it's being replaced by string for this particular use case. So I have an array list of strings, and when I call peek, it's going to return a string value, and when I call push, I have to pass it a string value. So here I've created my stack of strings, I've added a few of them, I print it out, I pop one, and I peek one. So let's run this and see what we get here. So we can see that in the stack is Alice, Bob, Charlie, and Dave, which are the strings I've added right here. When I call pop, it returns Dave because Dave is the most recently added item. When I call peek, it returns Charlie, but notice when I called pop and returned Dave, Dave got removed from the stack, whereas when I call peek and it returns Charlie, Charlie's still in the stack. So that's the difference between those two methods. And then real quick, I'm also going to show you why it's so good to have generics. So let's say that instead of strings, I want to make a stack that holds integers. So I'm just going to replace the data type I'm passing to the stack. I'm going to replace string with integer. And then I'm going to push a bunch of integers rather than strings. So this is really nice because I get a lot more code reuse from the generic class than I otherwise would have. If instead of being able to use generics, I had to specify what this type would be, then if I wanted to have a stack of integers instead of a stack of strings, I would have to write a completely new class right here. As it is now, I can just reuse the one that's already there with no modification at all to this class.